Good morning and welcome back to Atomic Hillbilly. Today, as you can probably tell, I'm in the kitchen and I'm going to make something that my wife actually just recently taught me how to make. But this is a recipe that has been passed down for 4 generations in my family, and it's definitely, at least as far as I know, it's a southern delicacy, if you will. And again, my mother was taught how to cook this from my aunt. My aunt was taught how to cook that from her mother, my grandmother, and my grandmother was taught how to make that from her mother. So it goes back at least as far as great grandmothers, as far as we know, maybe further. We're definitely not the ones that invented this. There's several recipes online that you'll find. This is the way we make it, and again, I've seen different variations of it down here. You can actually find it on the menu sometimes here in the South, but not as frequently as it used to be. But again, don't curl your nose up at it. I know a lot of people are going to instantly go chocolate gravy. Ugh. But let me tell you, this is not your traditional grease-based gravy like your sausage gravy and biscuits would be. This is essentially simple ingredients, which we'll put up on the screen for you as well, which, basically primarily it consists of water, sugar, a little bit of flour to thicken it, and some vanilla, and of course some cocoa to give it its chocolate flavor. So stick around, check it out, guys. I think you're gonna like it. Cook it up. It's a small batch, and try it out before you turn your nose up at it. All right, so just real quick, I've kind of laid out all the stuff that I need for the recipe that I make, which again, this is primarily just feeding myself. Nobody in my immediate family, my wife and my kids, they don't really care for this. So my wife basically interpreted a small version of this from my mother and put it out on a recipe. So again, you basically need all your measuring cups. And what do I need most? Oh, these right here, because I can't read anything. So again, you need all the cups. You got a cup, 3/4, a half, a third, a quarter. You got a tablespoon and a teaspoon. So you're going to be utilizing all of that, plus your measuring cup, a couple of whisks. You're going to need some all-purpose flour, that's not the sugar I'm looking for, some sugar, biscuit making of your choice. There's my biscuit flour already laid out. We put a little bit of vanilla in it, and of course the cocoa itself. A couple of whisks to stir everything up. And I like to make it with a couple of sausage patties. So I've got my pan laid out for my sausage patties. I've already got my water in my pan. So again, everything, total cook time for this is only about maybe 20 minutes between prep and cook, everything all together. So this is 2 cups of water, and that's what you start with. And again, just put it in a saucepan of your choice. And again, this recipe, you will have to adjust it either up or down according to how wet you like your biscuits, how dry you like your biscuits, how many people you're feeding, etc. So it's easy enough to take the recipe and multiply it, divide it, whatever you want to do to fit your family situation. Okay, so one thing to note with this particular recipe is when I was a kid and my dad was a child, and I'm sure his parents were kids, we were extremely poor. Now, my parents weren't as poor as my grandparents, and I have no history above and beyond that, but growing up as a kid, we were poor. We didn't have a lot of money. So this was a recipe that my mom could easily put together for minimal costs and feed all of us kids, right? I had myself and 5 siblings, and often every weekend we were either having company over to our house for a big breakfast, or we were going to somebody else's house to have a big breakfast. And cocoa, again, people here call it chocolate gravy. We've always called it cocoa and biscuits, but it is essentially one and the same. So, but chocolate gravy was always on the menu, no matter whose household we went to. So, again, it's just a cheap recipe that'll feed a lot of mouths. Okay, so again, the way you cook everything up, and you can do it on your own terms, however you want to do it. But again, I like a couple of sausage patties with mine, and of course the biscuits. So again, total prep time, really once you get everything together, 15 minutes or so. But I try to cook everything so that it's kind of all coming out at the same time. So essentially, I start my sausage patties first. Go ahead and get the heat turned on there. Same thing with the oven. The biscuits that I use call for 425 degrees. So again, you can do this accordingly to whatever biscuit recipe you have. So I get the oven starting to heat and got her going. And so again, then this is the Acceleratus Maximus burner on our particular stove. So this is the burner that I use. Gets the water boiling pretty quick. And I always get this thing wrong. So let's see, I think that's correct. Yep, you can see it starting to glow. So again, next thing we'll be adding is the sugar and the cocoa. And again, the cocoa takes 1 tablespoon. Add the cocoa and 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Put that in there, and we'll just whisk that up, get it all stirred up together good and mixed in. And again, I'm just using a whisk. That's good there, and that's good on the cocoa for now. We'll let that go ahead and boil. We don't do anything with this until it actually starts to boil. So keep up with your cocoa, just stirring it occasionally just to keep all the sugar granules and everything mixed up so that nothing's burning in the pan while you're making the rest of your biscuits and the other ingredients for the cocoa. For my biscuit recipe, again, what I've got here is, I believe it's 2 1/4 cups of biscuit mix, and it requires 2/3 of a cup of milk to be added to that. And this is a really dry recipe. It took me a little while to get used to that, how dry it was. I'm used to, a cake or a pancake batter or something of that nature. And these are what I just call drop biscuits. And this is it for the ingredients for this. You just use your mix and you use your milk. Get everything mixed up, get all the dryness out of there. And my biscuits definitely won't win a county fair as far as the looks of them go, but they taste fine. But I don't care. You know where it's going. And just kind of mix it up good. Get all that dry batter pull together into your mixture, and you should be pretty good to go. Just use a cookie sheet here. And let's see, pardon my counter mess. I'll just take a regular tablespoon, spoon me out of there. Now let's get it all off the mixing spoon first. And again, I just kind of use the mixing spoon, pile it up. Here my cocoa starting to spatter a little bit back here. And again, this is just what I call drop biscuits. And what I'm making for myself, this basically makes 2 bowls of cocoa and biscuits. Got it. Step over here and stir my cocoa real quick. Still finished up with the batter here. that's it. My biscuits are ready to put in the oven. Again, I put my biscuits in for about 12 minutes total. I put them in for 6 and then turn the pan and cook them for another 5 or 6 just till they're good and brown. All right, our next step is going to be, we need a 1/2 cup of water and a 1/4 cup of flour. And my wife taught me this trick also, is we mix this up separate, and this is to actually thicken the cocoa. Once it starts to boiling, this is what you use to add to it to thicken it into more of a gravy consistency. Right now it's very just, I mean, it's basically chocolate sugar water right now is all it is. And this is what's going to add the thickness to the cocoa gravy. So we mix it up here, and the reason we do that is actually it's easier, and it helps prevent the gravy from lumping up, trying to dump the water and the flour in it at the same time. And this usually works out perfect for the thickness of the consistency of the chocolate gravy that I like. All right, and you can see my cocoa is starting to boil. So really at this point, we can go ahead and add the flour and water mixture to start thickening this up. Sausage patties are cooking. And just make sure you kind of stir this as you pour it in. And again, this will help prevent it from lumping up. And this instantly, not instantly, but fairly quickly starts thickening this up into more of a gravy consistency. And again, we prefer it, I prefer it more thin, more soupy, I guess, if you will, than a thick traditional sausage gravy. And you just kind of stir that up. Let her heat up for a little while and thicken up a little more. All right, I just turned my biscuits around. You can see they're already starting to brown up. They've been in there for about 6 minutes. So we're good there. Got the sausage patties flipped once. I like my sausage patties good and brown, so they're gonna do that again. And you can see that we've got thickness on our chocolate gravy now. Sorry if I went off camera there. I'm going to go ahead and turn the burner off on this one and move this to the back burner. Let it thicken up and cool down a little bit before I start consuming this goodness. Sorry, the one thing I forgot was vanilla, so I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla to the chocolate gravy and just mix it in there. Biscuits are done. They look perfect, just the way I like them. Slightly brown, a little crunchy maybe to them. Still working on them sausage patties. I do with mine, and again, everybody can do their own thing. I like to crumble my biscuits up into my bowl. And I use, you know, what I call a cereal bowl, and I fill it right to the brim with crumbled up biscuits. And again, you can do this however you want it. Some people leave their biscuit on their plate whole. They spoon the chocolate gravy over it and cut it up with their fork or their spoon while they do that. But this is the way I guess I've just done it since I was a kid. Old habits, hard to break. So, and I overfill it a little bit simply because as you mix it up, it will break down a little bit. And again, depends how wet or dry you like your combo. That's how I do my biscuits. And you serve the old chocolate gravy over the top of them biscuits. And I usually start with 2 ladles full. Get that in there. And then start mixing up. So it's all, everything's good and chocolatey all the way down to the bottom. We ain't got no dry biscuits. And again, this is the way I like it. My dad, when he was alive and ate this, my dad liked his very wet. So he would do about half of what I would do for biscuits, and just as much or more of the cocoa in there than I add to mine. And again, she needs a little bit more, so about 3/4 of a ladle maybe. And that ought to make it just how I like it. That's good. I like that. My sausage patties are coming out. I'm just about ready to consume this goodness. Hey guys, so that's it for cocoa and biscuits, chocolate gravy and biscuits, whatever you want to call it. Pretty simple breakfast, and again, what I call Southern delicacy, man. I just love this stuff. Don't eat it a ton, but once every couple of weeks I like to have me some cocoa and biscuits. So, not saying that my family invented this, guys, but if you know, you're from another region of the country besides the South, meaning Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, and your family does something similar, let me know. Put a comment down below and let me know what part of the country or part of the world maybe that you live in and that you do this. And if your recipe differs from mine, let me know. And again, just a great way to have you a nice sweet breakfast. And I don't think it's horrible for you. Definitely not health food, but anyways, regardless. Hey, I'm fixing to dive into this bad boy. I'm gonna go out in the living room and stream me an Abbott and Costello movie and feel like I'm about 10 years old again, guys. Thanks for watching. See you real soon.